Alright guys, welcome back to the Daily Dose. My name is XONEVANT. Let's talk about E3. Oh my god, there's so much to talk about, man. I haven't written any notes. This is all coming off the top of my dome here. I really just need to kind of talk to you guys, about this whole situation between, Microsoft and Sony and what I feel like is the bigger issue here, which is not which console looks the best. It's not, which console has the best exclusives. It's not how many games are coming out at launch for each console. All that stuff is irrelevant, man. The bigger picture here is what's going on with gaming in terms of a culture, okay? That, to me, is the biggest issue. So, back in the day, there were 8 tracks, right? When my dad was growing up, there were 8 tracks. 8 tracks were the smash, boy. Everybody had 8 tracks. People loved 8 tracks. There you go. And then you kind of get into the cassette tape, right? Then 8 tracks go away. You have the cassette tape. Then you have the CD, blah, blah, blah. Then a couple years ago, there was the Blu-ray versus the HD, right? Now I feel like we have this divide within our gaming culture that says you're either the gamer that loves to be connected to the internet. Like, you love that. You love that connectivity with the world. That's you. That's fine, whatever. And then there's people like me who are like, look, when I play a campaign in the privacy of my own home, I would prefer to keep it private. There are some things that I don't want to give up in terms of my privacy. Now, there's a couple ways you can look at this scenario. A lot of it, honestly, is when you grew up. Like, when I grew up when, Nintendo was out, Atari was out, 7800 was out. I went to, the store. Heck, I could go to the grocery store and buy video games. Can you believe that? There was a day where you could go inside of a grocery store and buy a video game. You could rent video games at grocery stores. I've even bought games as a kid at gas stations. So, now when you think about buying games, you think about a couple of places. You think about your GameStops, you think about your Best Buys, your Targets, and then any kind of online that you have, right? eBay, etc. But when I was growing up, you bought games at a store or a gas station or a grocery store, whatever. You bought that game, you bought that console, you came home, you popped it in, you played. That was it. There was no internet walkthroughs. There was no internet YouTube videos. There was none of that. You played it, you experienced it, you enjoyed it, or you didn't, and then you took it back and you got something else, or you traded it on the bus. I remember trading games on the bus as a kid, and it was a big no-no in school, but we would kind of do it like black market-like, you know what I mean? It's a part of culture, okay? So this backlash that seems to be happening against the Xbox One, it's the fact that they're dividing a culture. There's a culture that exists. Then you have people, maybe you're watching this and you're between the ages of maybe like 12 and maybe like 20, maybe 22, somewhere around in that range. You grew up in a time where there was iPhones and iPads and internet, constantly, blah, blah, blah. That's you. So when you hear something like digital distribution or DRM or all these kind of restrictive services, it kind of doesn't faze you, I don't think. Even though I know some of you it does, it kind of doesn't faze you as much because there's not as much culture shock when it comes to that, because you didn't grow up in a different kind of time. You know what I mean? And I think that's where we both, where my generation and then your generation, if that's you, if you're that 12 to 20 guy out there or girl and you're thinking more or less like, oh, what's the big deal? I think that's where we need to have the discussion. Okay, I think that's where a lot of the rift is coming in at, is because we grew up in 2 different time periods, if you will. You see what I mean? For me, I don't like being connected to the internet. I don't like the idea. I wouldn't even have a Facebook page if I didn't have a YouTube channel and wanted to kind of connect with you guys a little bit more. But I've never had a Facebook until I had a YouTube channel. I've never agreed with Facebook. I don't like their privacy things. I don't like the fact that they're, sharing my information, etc. You know what I mean? I don't like that. Up until about 4 or 5 years ago, I never really even used the internet that much, believe it or not. You see what I mean? I still don't to this day have a smartphone. I have an old BlackBerry phone because I don't care about being connected to the internet all the time. And that's the difference. And I think that's the biggest issue we're having right now with these console wars, if you can even call them that, is you've got 2 different breeds of culture that are basically saying the opposite. which gets me to the bigger point here. So Sony basically said,
in addition to creating an amazing library of new titles on PlayStation 4, we're equally focused on delivering what gamers want most, without imposing restrictions or devaluing their PS4 purchases. For instance, PlayStation 4 won't impose any new restrictions on the use of PS4 gamers. Guess that's a good thing. We believe in the model that people embrace today with PlayStation 3 and continue to demand. Just heard you there. When a gamer buys a PS4 disc, they have the rights to use that copy of the game. They can trade in the game at retail, sell it to another person, lend it to a friend, or keep it forever. In addition, PlayStation 4 disc-based games don't need to be connected online to play. Or for any type of authentication. If you enjoy playing single-player games offline, PS4 won't require you to check in online periodically. And it won't stop working if you haven't authenticated within 24 hours.
that's what the Xbox One is. You see what I mean? It's a restrictive console. You buy it, and you have more restrictions than you did with the console that you probably already own, which is the 360. You see what I mean? With the 360, you have less restrictions. With the new console, you're going to have to fork $500 over for. You're going to have more restrictions. I don't see why anybody would want to make that jump. But if that is you, right? This video is really about you. I want to know why you're ready to make that jump. I'm not saying that you're wrong for making that jump, but I want you to tell me why you're ready to make that jump. Is it just because you grew up in a day, or you're growing up in a day where internet is just kind of one of those things? Because I think people from the retro day, I can't think of anybody from the retro day that was ready to make that jump. And I think it's because of the culture. But the main concern here is that we're divided. I don't see, like for me, like I am not, I'll go and put it on record, and then we'll talk about the future of this channel. I will not be buying an Xbox One. NOT, there is no way that I will buy an Xbox One. I even thought about, well, what if somebody gives me an Xbox One? This is prior to the E3. What if somebody gives you an Xbox One? But now that we have the E3 and they still haven't, they've basically been saying the same thing, right? You're going to have to be connected 24 hours, every 24 hours, blah, blah, blah. Even if somebody were to give me an Xbox One, I would say, you know what? No, I'll just keep it. I will not have an Xbox One in my apartment ever. Ever. Just because if you don't stand for something in this world, you fall for everything. My parents always used to tell me that, and it's stuck with me through my whole life. I want to see the future of gaming flourish and be able to play games and everything to be easily accessed. And buying the Xbox One, you know, voting with my dollars on that console will not do that. It will not pave the way for a bright future for gamers. I even went into E3 thinking if Sony pulls this kind of stunt, I may not even be playing either console. That's how serious I am about digital distribution and this whole kind of monopoly that the consoles, I'm totally against it. And some of you guys may agree with me, some of you guys may not. That's fine. That's where the discussion needs to happen in the comments. But that's kind of where my thoughts are. I will be buying a PS4 as soon as I can possibly get my hands on it because I want to play games. See what I mean? I want to sit down and play games. And you know what's crazy that I know a lot of people in the Xbox guys, the gamers who are going to be supporting the Xbox One, they're more like, well, you know, digital, who cares, right? I'm going to buy the game. It's going to be on my console. I'm going to be able to play it quick. I'm going to be able to buy it from the store or the marketplace. You know, who cares? Well, here's the thing, man. I never thought that when I was, you know, a kid and I was playing games like Mario 1 and Mario 2 and Mario 3, I never thought that I would ever want to come back and play those games. I was like, man, I'm just going to play this game. I just beat it. You know, let's put it over there on the bookshelf, or let's go trade it in or give it away to a friend and not have to worry about it anymore. Like, I'm never going to play this game again. And now I'm an adult, and that's all I really want to play. Like, I love retro games. I have a huge collection, and I'm constantly going back and, you know, getting my physical, you know, cartridge and putting it in my physical console, and I'm playing. And I think that's what's going to happen 10 or 20 years from now for you, right? The game that you're playing right now that you're like, well, I'll just download it for $60 and I'll play it, and I don't care about this whole, you know, servers and, you know, trading it in and all that kind of stuff, because once I beat it, I'm not going to play it anymore. But I think what's going to happen is 10 or 20 years from now, you're going to want to come back and play that game, and guess what? Xbox One will now be the Xbox 3, right? There'll be more generations of that console. They're not going to keep the servers available for all those games. We're already seeing that just going from the 360 to the Xbox One. They're not keeping any of the digital content, right? Whatever you had on 360 is now lost unless you still keep your 360. But if your 360 ever dies or whatever, then all the digital content that you have is gone. You see what I mean? That's a bad thing. And then it's not backwards compatible. So there's nothing in the history of where games have been to determine that in the future, when you finally get to the Xbox 3, that the Xbox One and the Xbox 2, or hypothetically, all that content's going to carry over. You see what I mean? So if you're buying, let's say, one game a month on the Xbox One for the next, 6 to 10 years, that's a lot of money, man. And then if it doesn't carry over to the Xbox 2, quote unquote, or whatever that's going to be called, you're out of all that money. And if they shut down the servers for the Xbox One later on down the line, you can't even go back and play these games because they're not physical, right? When you buy your physical disc on the Xbox and you put it on your console, it burns it to your hard drive. You're basically spending $60 to rent a game, and your console is how you're renting it. That's basically what it is. And I just can't. I can't figure out why anybody would want to buy anything that would restrict them so much from being able to just play a game. But that's where I want to hear from you guys in the comments. And then to top it all off, and then I'll go back to Sony in a second. To top it all off, Don Matrick, which is the president of business for Microsoft, for interactive business for Microsoft, came out yesterday on with Jeff Keighley on Game Trailers, and I put a video up on my Facebook. And this guy says,
and I think people are going to love it, and then they're going to understand what we're trying to create and how it links games and entertainment, the functionality of the box, some of the advantages that you get of having a box that is designed to use an online state. So that, to me, is a future-proof choice, and I think people could have arguably gone the other way if we didn't do it, and fortunately we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device. I mean, seriously, when I read the blogs and thought about who's really the most impacted, there was a person who said, hey, I'm on a nuclear sub, and I don't even know what it means to be on a nuclear sub, but I've got to imagine that it's not easy to get an internet connection.
Probably not playing Call of Duty multiplayer on the sub.
But I mean, hey, I can't empathize where if I was on a sub, I'd be disappointed.
And I thought to myself, wow, not only have you made a majority of consumers upset, a majority of gamers upset, now you just made them more upset, right? That's like if I told you guys right now, if you don't like what I'm doing on my channel, then unsub. That's so stupid, right? My job is to interact with you guys and to listen to your feedback, as long as it's constructive, right? and try to figure out if I can bend the rules of my own mind. If I can say, well, yeah, let me try that out in my videos. Yeah, let me try that out. That's a good idea. And I've done that in the past. And there's been whole shows launched on my channel that came from you guys. So a lot of the stuff I do on my channel is from you guys. It would be stupid of me to alienate any of you and say something to the effect of, if you don't like what I'm doing, then get off, or, don't watch, or whatever. That's crazy, man. That is so silly. So if you're an Xbox supporter, how can you support a statement like that? Tell me how you can support a statement like that. And maybe you didn't know that statement even exists. I didn't know about it until this morning. There's no company on the planet that I can think of that gets this much backlash and then doesn't just change their policy. So we'll have to see if they change it going forward. But right now it seems like, no, you're going to have to authenticate. You're going to have to do all this stuff. You can only trade your game to one person, one time. They have to be a friend of your, on your friends list for 30 days. Too many rules, man. Too many rules for me to just be able to sit down and play a game. That's all I want to do is play a game. So if you're an Xbox gamer, let me know, A, why are you supporting this console? And B, how do you feel about Sony? Okay, if you're an Xbox gamer, how do you feel about Sony? Now let's go back to the Sony guys. So Sony, to me, had a dynamite press conference. They had a great price point, $399. Xbox was $499. Their console looks sleek. You know what I mean? It's small. Hopefully it runs pretty quiet. So all that stuff is fine. The games are fine. The main thing that I think was their biggest issue was that they didn't really talk about the online multiplayer, because I know there was one slide that everybody keeps bringing up where it says $5 a month, and it lists all the bullet points of what you can expect to get for $5 a month, and one of those is multiplayer access 24 hours. And I think it's going to be tied into the PlayStation Plus membership, which they had a statistic that said that roughly 60% of all the PS users already are on PlayStation Plus. And I know that I'm on PlayStation Plus. And if you don't know what that is, you basically pay, it's like $17.99 every 3 months, or roughly, I think it's 50 or 60 bucks a year. I don't pay yearly, I pay every 3 months. And you can get access to a lot of like games, free games, discounted games, indie games. It has nothing to do with multiplayer, but it is a game library that you can download to your hard drive. Now they're just saying that multiplayer will be included in that, from what I'm gathering. So I don't see that as big of an issue. If you're not a PlayStation Plus member, you should be. They're going to be giving away a free game. Now, I'm not a racing kind of guy, unless it's Mario Kart or something like that, but Drivers Club is going to be coming free for the PlayStation Plus members at launch, which that's going to be a $60 brand new IP. And I think they're calling it the Independent Game Club or something like that. And supposedly once a month, they're not going to just be giving away free games. They're going to be giving away free new games that are just coming out on the market. And you'll have access to that. So this is a service that's going to more than pay for itself. And hopefully they'll take some of this money and improve our online experience, because I know that's kind of an issue for, PlayStation users, but it's been free. So there's not really much you can complain about when something is free. So that's really the only issue I saw come out of Sony, was that I wish they'd have been a little bit more specific about that whole deal. But for somebody like me, it just doesn't affect me. So that's it, man. I will absolutely not be buying an Xbox One. I think the only thing that would save the Xbox One, or would have saved the Xbox One, and maybe you guys can tell me this and then we'll close out on this commentary, is why didn't Xbox just come out with an offline only, no Connect, none of that stuff? Just give me the game box, okay? Sell it to me for, $2.99, $3.99, whatever, right? Just let me buy the games. That would have been cool. And then have the Connect that you can buy optional. Maybe even have the Connect bundled with the system for $4.99. That would have been cool. And that way you keep your game console separate from your games and entertainment console. See what I mean? But for some reason they didn't, and they're not. There's some reason why they want that Connect to be in your house. And a lot of people have speculated privacy and, people's going to be spying on you and all this kind of stuff. I don't know that I agree with it that far, but I wouldn't put it past them either. You see what I mean? Facebook was supposed to be just some, social site where you share information with people. But, now we know that people use the your Facebook accounts to, you know, solve murders and solve crimes and all this kind of stuff, because they know who all your friends are, right? You're not private anymore. And we know that Facebook sells your information to people. So what starts off as something small is baby steps to something else. You see what I mean? And this whole online only authentication, DRM type stuff, it's all baby steps. And if we don't stop it now as a culture, right, as a gaming culture, if we don't say no, we're not going to buy anything that regulates and restricts us this much when we want to play games, then 10 years from now, that will be the norm, okay? And there's no going back at that point. So that's my thoughts on E3. I thought Sony I thought Sony did a really good job of coming out with a great price point. They answered all the questions verbally up on stage, live, okay? Not some weird, you know, press thing that was on some website somewhere. None of that stuff. They said it verbally. Now, what that does for Sony, and everybody keep this in mind, this means that for them, they can never really go digital. They can never really impose these things, or else they're going to look foolish. If they go next generation, PlayStation 5, and they suddenly do DRM and all this kind of stuff, they're going to be in the same boat that Microsoft's in right now. Because this year they're quote-unquote saying, oh, we love the gamers and game on and all that kind of stuff. So they've pretty much solidified that this is where we stand as a company. So if they ever change that in the future, they're going to lose my business. See what I mean? So... But then with the Xbox, they have to change something in their policy, or they have to give me a gaming console with just the game system, or I will not buy it. So I will be buying a PlayStation 4 at launch. I will not be buying an Xbox One unless they somehow find a way to just sell me the console without the Kinect. You see what I mean? So what does that mean for the future of Square One Games? Well, that means that I will not be covering any exclusives on the Xbox. You know, I'll still be, now let me go ahead and say this, I'll still be playing the Xbox 360, so if a game comes out that's exclusive on Xbox, and it's on Xbox One and on Xbox 360, then obviously I will play it on Xbox 360, but I know at some point there's going to be exclusives that are only on the Xbox One, and those, unfortunately, I will not be able to cover on my channel, which really sucks. But you know, that's just something that I have to do. Hopefully you guys will stick around. I'm definitely not telling you to, you know, shove off. You know what I mean? Get out of here. I'm not saying that, but I hope that you understand where I'm coming from. I just cannot support what Microsoft is doing, because I just don't believe in what they're doing. And I'm still open-minded. If somebody wants to convince me, if somebody wants to debate me in the comments, and especially if you're an Xbox advocate, let me know, man. Let me know your thoughts. You know, it's all about education, and maybe there's something that I don't know. Maybe there's something that you know that I don't know that will change my mind. And I know a lot of people are going to say, again, oh, it's just the internet. You know, being connected is not that big of a deal. It's going to take one time, and this life cycle in this console is going to be, what, 6 to 10 years? It's going to take one time for you to go to log on and your Kinect not work, or your internet not have that ability to check in, and your console is going to basically be a paperweight. And then it's going to make sense. It's only going to take one time for that bad taste to get put in your mouth, and then you're going to realize what we're all afraid of on our side. I don't ever want to buy something that's $500 and then be sitting at home ready to play it and it doesn't work because some other service didn't work, or some checks and balances didn't work. Maybe somebody hacked the console, you know, and the servers are down, blah, 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 and I can't play. I just can't see that. You know, right now, if the Sony PlayStation 4 goes down, the internet goes down, I can't play multiplayer, I can still play campaign. See what I mean? Which is really what I do anyway. So let's bash it out in the comments, man. Be nice, be critical, man. You know, share your opinions, but you know, do it so respectfully. And let's see if we can figure this thing out. Like I said, if you're an Xbox guy or girl and you support the console, let me know why you support it. A, why would you buy it? Why is it a valid purchase for you? And B, if you're buying it, what do you think about Sony? Like, are you not going to buy Sony because you're buying Xbox, or do you still support Sony and maybe you're going to be buying both? I personally can't see gamers buying both, but maybe you can. I do feel like the people who are buying Sony will probably not be buying Xbox because they're so opposite, night and day. So anyway, I know this has been a long video, but just a lot to say, man, a lot to talk about. and a lot to discuss. But the Sony PlayStation 4 will have my money come holiday, and I will not be supporting the Xbox One as it stands right now. So anyway, guys, that's it. Hopefully, guys have enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. You guys be good.